Starting, I think we should start again from the beginning of this section because I don't really want to answer any questions or until we get to read the whole thing. I think we should read the whole thing before we try discussing it. It's very, very difficult. It's very important to get this section clear because it's a message for life.
You just started it?
This section. The story so far is that Elkanah, we're on page 6. Elkanah and Hannah have no children. Elkanah is married to his second wife called Penina. She has several children. And eventually, after many years of prayer and suffering and loneliness, Hannah prays and she goes to the Mishkan and she promises to God, if you give me a child, I will dedicate him to the temple, to work and serve and grow up in the temple. And that's what happens. The Kohen Gadol gives her a bracha or gives her a prophecy that she's going to have a baby, and the next year she has a baby. When the baby's 2 years old, we assume it's 2 years old because he's then weaned. Weaned means he's not nursing anymore, right? And we discussed the connection between the word gamal, meaning a camel, and yigamel, to be weaned. Same word, one's a verb, one's a noun. The connection is very difficult to see what's the connection, but that's what this article that I just brought over here. The connection. This is an article written by Rabbi Klein. He writes in Shaul HaMelech's internet site, and there every week he brings out a new article every week on synonyms in the Parsha. Right? So this is an article he wrote 2 years ago on the word gamal and how it relates to the other meanings of the word gamal, which means to be weaned, to give reward, like gemilos, chasadim, right? I think that basically the idea that he suggests is that actually the word gamal is related to the word gamar. Now, yes. Now, when we speak, right, we don't really see a connection between the lamed and the reish. But if you were Chinese, you would see how they're very, very connected, right? You know, like Chinese eat fried rice instead of fried rice. That's because, right? Yeah.
They what?
So, yeah, they eat fried rice.
Fried rice.
So there are certain people, certain segments of humanity who can't distinguish between the R and the L, and they're actually interchangeable in Hebrew as well. That means they're not completely interchangeable. There's a connection between words which they've got the same root letters except for the gimel and the lamed have changed. Other than that, they're the same. So he claims that the word gamal, which means to be weaned, and gamar are slightly related because the child finished nursing, right? That's what it means to be weaned, you finished. So that's the word gamal. Now, the idea, I think, is like this. When you and I eat, we eat until we're full. It's until we finished. You finish eating, right? Yeah. When you drink, you don't do that. You drink until you're not thirsty. Yeah. You don't actually drink until you finish drinking. You don't do that unless you are getting ready for a fast. You drink until you can't drink anymore.
Or you
right?
have no more to drink.
No, that's not called finished. There's nothing left there. No, finished doesn't mean in that sense. Finished means the doctor says you have to drink 2 liters of water a day, so now you finished the 2 liters. You're finished, right?
I would have finished many times a day.
Yeah. So yeah. Then you're finished. So now the only animal that drinks till it's finished is a camel. It doesn't drink till it's not thirsty. See, you can drink, and then when you need another drink, you get another drink. The camel's going for 2 weeks in the desert.
Oh, that's why we're talking about that.
We're trying to connect the connection between to be weaned and to be a camel. So it could be the name camel is because it's
this is what I suggested.
It's the one creature that drinks until it has finished drinking. Is that what you suggested?
I suggested because because of the drinking, how they drink. I suggested, then I said because they store water and they.
No, you just guessed that maybe it's something to do with the water, which is true, right? But how that relates with gamal, we don't know. So that's his suggestion. Okay, so that just came in, by the way. So gets back to the story. So she has a baby, and when he's
So you think the name Gamal comes from term
describing the way it drinks.
describing the way.
Yeah.
Gamal.
It doesn't describe his hump.
Camel.
Right? It could do, right? But according to this, it's not describing its hump, it's describing the way it drinks. Because it's very unique. Other creatures don't drink like that. And this does. Okay, that's a suggestion. Nobody knows, but it's just a guess. Based on studying camels and studying the Hebrew language. Right? No one really knows. Okay? Alright. That's what the article's about. There's other words for camel, there's female camels, male camels, the bacterian camel, two-humped camel, right? The letter gimel is also related to the word gamal. It actually looks a bit like a camel, whatever. I would look at it more like a giraffe, but depends how long the neck is. Depends how long the neck is, right?
I would think giraffe as well.
Could be some say that the ancient Hebrew way of writing a gimel is more like a camel. Also, he points out that the Latin word for gamma, alpha, beta, gamma, the third letter of the alphabet, is pronounced in Hebrew. When the Latin is quoted in Hebrew, it's quoted as gamla. Alpha, beta, gamla. When
Gamla, Gamal.
yeah. Well, anyway, let's get to the point. So Hannah, after bringing her baby to the Mishkan, which is in Shiloh, thanks God for the baby, and she gives the baby over to Eli, who's the Kohen Gadol, and he and the people of the Beis Hamikdash are now going to bring him up and look after him and initiate into, he's not a Kohen, but initiating into the jobs that Levium do, and teaching him how to learn Torah and to be a tzaddik, and eventually to become a Navi, as we all know Shmuel was a Navi. So the next story that we're introducing is written as a contrast between Eli's sons and Shmuel. We mentioned Eli's sons in chapter Aleph, in the first chapter, called Chofni and Pinchas. And we're going to find that they're not such great tzaddikim, and in contrast to Shmuel, who's gradually growing up to be a great tzaddik. They're being contrasted.
Who is believed to be writing currently?
Again?
Who is believed to be writing currently?
Who's the author?
Right
Shmuel. Shmuel HaNavi.
All this?
He wrote it. And can we just take this off your thing? Yeah.
What do you mean? I get.
He wrote it from records. He wrote it from what he heard about. He wrote it because he was a Navi, right? But towards the end of his life, he wrote the whole story that he heard from his mother or his father or whatever.
Okay.
You know, or he read it in the newspaper or whatever records there were. Okay, or he wrote it B'Nevuah because he was a Navi, right? It's not so difficult. Okay, so the story started off like this: Pasuk Yud Aleph. So it says Elkanah went back home to his house, and the lad he served God in front of Eli HaKohen. That was Pasuk Yud Aleph. Pasuk Yud Beis. But the children of Eli, they did not know God. So we're not going into the detail what that means exactly. I'll just take that face value. When we got to the end of the story, we'll be able to analyze what that means, right? Clearly it doesn't mean they never heard of God, right? That's ridiculous. They're the sons of the Kohen Gadol. They work in the Mishkan, right? They've heard of God. They know who God is. They're doing the service in the temple. They obviously know God, right? But knowing and knowing are two different things, right? So what exactly it means they didn't know God, we'll see when the Torah describes what it was they were doing or were accused of doing.
If not connected?
Yeah, something like that. Whatever.
You could know a celebrity but not really know a celebrity.
Correct. Like it says, Adam knew his wife, right? No, he knew his wife before as well, but then he came very, very closely connected, intimately connected with his wife. It's also called knowing, so that's probably what it means. They didn't have a really close connection with God, a very superficial connection. But let's see the story explain itself what it was they were doing. Okay. So we say like this, introduced yesterday, that the normal procedure when you bring a sacrifice to the Mishkan, a normal sacrifice is a shlomim, right? You could bring an oilo as well, which is the whole thing's going on the Mizbech. Nobody eats any of it. The only thing that's taken off is the leather, the hide, and that's given to the priests. Okay, that's not. Then there are sin offerings, which is not eaten by the owner at all. It's all eaten, some of it's put on the Mizbeach, and the rest is eaten by the Kohanim. The thing that's usually eaten by the owner is the shlomim. It's called the shlomim, it's just its name, right? The shlomim, it's from the word shalom, peace, it means everybody's happy. The bit goes on the Mizbeach, that's the fats, okay, and the blood. The bit that goes to the kohen, that's the chazeh and the sheikh. You mentioned this, so the chazeh is the chest and the right thigh. That goes to the kohen. All of the rest of the animal is eaten by the owner. Okay?
Brisket.
Right. That's the normal procedure. In the Mishkan, in the times of Eli, under his son's leadership, Chofni and Pinchas, that's not what took place. There were certain violations of the normal rules, which makes it theft, it makes all sorts of things what it is. But we'll go into detail what it was. Pasuk Yud Gimel. Mishpat HaKohenim. Mishpat means the rule, the law. It doesn't mean the law by the law book, but this was their law. This was the way. This was their custom. This is what they used to do. Mishpat HaKohenim es ha'am. This was the way the Kohen, the priest, acted with the people who brought sacrifices in the Mishkan. Kol ish, every man, zoveach zevach, who would sacrifice a sacrifice.
Yeah.
So veach zevach, like the word mizbeach, from the same word. The mem is just added to be a place where you're doing sacrifice. Uba, and he would come. Who would come? Na'ar HaKohen, the lad of the Kohen. So the Chofni and Pinchas, they didn't come themselves. They would send someone one of the, I don't know, a young kohen, one of their children, grandchildren, or somebody who worked for them, could be a Levi, they would send someone who represented the kohen. Kibashel habasar, when the meat was cooking. So the Jews, who were now had rights to the whole animal, would take the whole animal and cook it. Okay? Because it was always going to be eaten. Parts were eaten by the kohen, parts eaten by the rest. So when the meat was cooking, whilst it was cooking, they had mazleg. What's a mazleg? A fork. Okay? That's what you say in modern Hebrew. That's how you say in Hebrew, it's a fork. This wasn't a regular fork, it was like a pitchfork. Meaning one with a big thing with a long handle, shalosh hashinaim, of 3 teeth, right? So our forks have 4 teeth usually, but a pitchfork might have 3 teeth, whatever. It's a fork with 3 teeth, biyado, in his hand. Come along, this pitchfork, what for? It says, V'hika bakior, he would strike. Now, I don't know why, but it describes all the different utensils that were used for cooking. It could be a big pot, a small pot, whatever. We'll talk, the different names, it's not important what the names are. I don't know why it was to go into detail, but whatever utensil that it was cooking in, they would come and strike it. I don't think it means they hit it on the outside. It means they'd take his pitchfork, stick it in to the meat that was cooking in there. The bakiyar, kiyar, we use a kiyar mean a sink, right? It's just the shape of that means a big pot, that sort of shape. Big
cauldron.
Yeah, a big cholent pot, right? Cauldron. Or badud. Now, dud we use today mean the thing that goes, the water heater, which is just another shape pot. Or bakalachat, obviously, no, that's a miklachat. Maybe it's related, I don't know, right? A kalachat. Or parur, which is obviously another type. I heard someone translate it as a spoon, right? That means if it had already been cooked, it was being taken out with a ladle, okay? So he would come along, stick his pitchfork in, kol asher ya'aleh hamazleg, whatever the pitchfork would take up, ya'aleh would bring up, yikach hakohen bo, he would take it. So although by Torah law he was only legally entitled to one of two pieces of the animal, this piece and this piece, right? When it was presumably it was cooking, the pot was already cut up into pieces. Otherwise, his pitchfork would take the whole thing out, right? Yeah. So it was cut up into pieces. It was all cooking there, right? They were boiling the meat. I don't know why they were boiling the meat. I don't like boiled meat so much. I don't eat meat at all. I much rather my meat.
I was wondering, like,
right?
what,
okay,
boiled all the meat?
I don't know. Whatever.
It's a horrible execution of.
It's a waste of meat to boil it instead of to fry it.
Unless you wrap it up in the plastic.
What does that do?
It keeps all the juices.
Okay, so maybe this is that. I really, it's not important why they did it, but this is what people.
Maybe it was a stew. Maybe they had vegetables.
You could do, I think. I think you're allowed to.
And vegetables.
Yeah, you're allowed to. Yeah. Since we learned to
that's good.
In Dafayem, you're allowed to. Whatever. It's not important. It doesn't make it into the story. There was a pot cooking, but that's the story, right? Meat, and he would stick his thing in. Whatever came out, he would take. So that was a violation of the Torah law. It's really theft. It's not more than theft. It's not like he's not allowed to eat it. He's allowed to eat it, it's just not yours, right? So he was taking a piece he wasn't entitled to. Why? Because I suppose they didn't want every time to take the same piece. Every time I have to take the chest and the thigh. Sometimes he wants a variation. He wants the leg, he wants the hand. All the different pieces.
Would he be allowed to trade with
what?
the...
No. It had to be eaten in it had to be eaten.
No, with the person who brought it. Would be allowed to trade. Go to the person who said, "Hey, I want."
Nobody's allowed to eat it besides the kohen. The kohen's only. That means the bit that's eaten by the kohen can only be eaten by the kohen. It can't be eaten by anybody else, right? So
You said it was all cut up.
No, so it was all cut up. I'm suggesting it was cut up.
One second. The whole cow.
No, it was cut up into pieces. You had the arm and the leg and the chest with the ribs. I'm not saying it was all minced meat or all. No, I'm just saying the pieces. Let's say the cow was cut up into 10 pieces. Right? So one of them would have been the right thigh, one would be the chest, and then the other one would be the left thigh.
Huge pieces, they didn't cut.
They're all huge.
Smaller.
Eventually they did when they ate them. I don't know. You assumed it was a stew. I have no idea. All right. I can't add any information other than it says in the story. They're all the rest is guesswork.
Wouldn't it be
Maybe.
more efficient? One second. Wouldn't it be more efficient to cook the pieces separately? The pieces that were dedicated for some people in one pot and the other pieces in another pot, so there won't be any confusion?
There won't be confusion. On the contrary, cook it all in one pot. When it's cooked, we'll take it and give it to the kohen. We're not going to get confused which is which.
It's also a vast amount of meat.
Okay.
The guy that was, let's say, talking about a cow, right? Cows really weren't sacrificed that much, were they?
It was a sheep. Little sheep that's this big.
Okay,
Could be anything.
But in the case that it's like a cow, right?
No.
A huge cow.
Then it would be more problematic. I don't know. Let's forget.
Cook everything? You know how many
What,
people
wait,
need to
Marky,
eat a whole
let's not
cow?
confuse the story with the details. It's not important.
It's all about details. That's
It's
what
not
it
all
is.
about details. No, but those details which there's no way of knowing because it doesn't say. It's pure guesswork. Let's say we're talking about a little sheep. Makes it easier? It makes it easier to learn about talking about a little sheep. Okay, it's not a big deal. All right? All right. All I'm saying is it must have been cut out, otherwise the whole thing would come out with your pitchfork, or it would be too heavy for your pitchfork to take out one of the two. So it must have been cut up somewhat. Okay? He sticks his thing in, takes out a piece, he takes for himself. And the owner says, you're not entitled to that. You keep shut up, otherwise they'll throw you out. Whatever. These were
Thugs.
They were thugs, right? They were in a position of power. They were in charge. It was their base, so to speak. They were the kohen, and they were the bosses. And if you didn't behave, if you're not nice to the kohen, next time you won't sacrifice your carbon for you, or he'll have the wrong intentions. I just brought your carbon. I had the wrong intention. I have to bring another one. You know what I mean? It's like
What?
Yeah, if the kohen has the wrong intention, he's thinking it's somebody else's, or it's a different purpose, right? That's what we're looking at in Daf Yomi, where the kohen has the wrong intention for your carbon. Then you have to bring a new carbon. He doesn't have to pay you for it. So they're in a very strong position of power, authority and power, and they misused it to boss people around and take whatever they wanted. Okay? Why did they do this? They're entitled to some of the meat, right? I guess because then you have a variety. You don't always get the same cut. Sometimes get different pieces, and that was tastier.
Maybe they were also saying Hashem's choosing the meat for me.
Maybe they have a very frum calculation as well.
Well, it's
right?
just because it randomly chooses.
Okay, but the truth is that God already chose the piece of meat for you and told you exactly what it is. You'll have the right thigh, you'll have the chest. But anyway, they didn't do that. So that was the first violation they did, which was what? Kacha ya'asu. This is what they would do. Ya'asu, they will do, but it really means in the context, this is what they would do. It means something they did once. This was the thing they did on an ongoing process. L'chol Yisrael, for all the Jews, Haboim who come, Sham, there, Beshilo, in Shiloh. Right, here it's spelled the normal way, with the hay at the end, like it's usually spelled. We had once it was with a vav, but it's usually with the hay at the end. Okay. That's one thing they did wrong. Next pasuk, right? Gam, also, B'terem yaktirun es hachelev. So, terem means before. It doesn't really mean before. Really the word before is lifnei. Terem means not yet, which is similar to before, right? It's easier for us to say before, but it doesn't really mean before. Okay? So, for example, today there's a place called Terem, which is where you go. When you go to Terem, you go to Terem?
Yeah.
If instead of going to hospital, so you can wait there hours and pay a lot of money, you go to Terem, and they'll tell you if you need to go to hospital. You get
It's
it?
like a doctor's office.
It's like that. It's got Terem really means before. That's what it means. Before you go to the hospital, come here first, and then it will save you a lot of time and money and bother, and then they'll tell you, well, you don't need to go, you just need to have a bandage on and go home. Right?
Okay, it's like urgent care. It's like,
Right.
you know.
So it's called
doctor.
Terem. Here
When
it's
I
called-
was when I went to Terra, it wasn't very urgent care. The hospital was a lot more urgent care than Terra. When I go to the doctor's office, you just wait in the thing and then they.
And you say a doctor. But the point is to avoid you going to the hospital. That's the point. Okay. So Gambit Terem Yaktirun. A Yaktirun is from the word, the root is Qatar. Kuf Tes Resh. Like?
The place, Qatar?
No. I don't think so. Like the Qatar. If you ever hear the Arabic
Pronunciation.
no, when they tell you about you getting on the train, and they have these announcements on a platform, right?
Fred Qatar.
Fred Qatar. What's the Qatar? The Qatar is the engine, the train, in Arabic. Why? Because the word Qatar means smoke, to go up in smoke. So since the engine of a train, a choo-choo train, right, is got smoke coming out the front, so the
old
train,
trains.
right, the old trains, right, so that's associated with a Qatar. I imagine, no, I didn't study Arabic, but I imagine that's why the train is called a Qatar, because it goes in smokes.
I thought it was called a rekevet.
That's in Hebrew.
That's you.
Oh, we're talking about
In Arabic, which gets a lot of its words from Hebrew, right? So, Ketores is the same word. What's Ketores? Incense, you
yeah.
put up in smoke. So when you put something to turn it into, to go up in smoke, you say Qatar, Ketoret. So this word, Yaktirun, means to offer up, to turn it into smoke, which is what you do with all sacrifices. Some of it goes on the Mizbeach, and then it is burnt and becomes smoke. So, legally or halachically, the Kohen isn't entitled to take anything from the sacrifice until the fats are put on the Mizbeach. before that means before the Mizbeach, or God, so to speak, gets what he's entitled to, the Kohanim are not entitled to take anything. Even the bit they're entitled is only after the fats go on the Mizbeach. But they violated that as well. They didn't want to wait till the fats go on the Mizbeach in a hurry. It takes time till the fats go on the Mizbeach. Sometimes a long queue, a line, it takes time. And then hurry, they want to get it over and done with. So there's a Kohen there putting all the fats on his bear, but there's another Kohen taking his pieces of meat from the cooking meat, and he's not really entitled to anything yet. So that was another violation. That's positive. Gam also, B'terem yaktirun esachele, before they offer up the chelev means the fats, because those are the pieces that go on the mizbeach, all sorts of fats. All the fats that you're not allowed to eat on a kosher animal are the fats that go on the mizbeach. Exactly the same thing. Right, the fats which go on the mizbeach, those are the ones you're not allowed to eat, or the other way around. The ones you're not allowed to eat are the ones that go on the mizbeach. I don't know which is the cause and effect, right? But those are the two things, okay? So those that go on the mizbeach, when they're brought on, ubahanar hakohen, again, the lad of the kohen would come, v'amar, and he would say, lo ish hazoveach, to the man who is offering, tana basar, give the meat. Tana basar, give the meat. Litzlot, to roast, la kohen, for the Kohen. I think what he's trying to say is, why were they in a hurry? Not just they wanted to get things over and done, they didn't want it cooked, they wanted it roasted. So if you wait, look, the owner's got the animal now. The fats are on the side waiting to be offered on the altar. The owner wants to get things done with, so he takes his animal and puts it into this big pot and cooks the whole thing. So if I wait till, if the Kohen waits till he's entitled to meat, he'll have cooked meat. He doesn't want cooked meat. Sometimes he wants roasted meat. But it's too late now because the owner's already cooked it. So he would take it before he was entitled to it, when it was still raw, so then he would be able to do with it whatever he wanted. So that was another violation, that he was taking it before he was entitled to it. I think that's the way to read it.
He was only entitled after it was cooked.
He was only entitled to it after the fats were put on the altar. The fats, it's not the same thing, but when the fats were on the altar, which should be straight away, but it could take time. There's sometimes a long queue of people, right? There's not that many Kohanim doing the job, and so it could be a backlog of animals. So the owner takes his animal away. He wants to eat.
It was shechted, fats removed, then cooked immediately.
That's how it could have been done, right?
No, that's not technically.
Well, don't forget this animal has to be eaten by tonight. By Chatzos, it has to be all done.
To say because, but that's not. It wasn't. Doesn't seem like it was that pleasurable of a thing for the Kohanim though, and the people itself.
What wasn't pleasurable?
Meat has to rest like a week before you eat it. If you eat it right away, right after it's dead, it's not good. It doesn't taste good.
So maybe they had a method to make it taste.
It's an interesting point.
Anyway, that's the fact.
I think another thing is how many were they doing a day? How many of these?
What the fuck is that?
Well,
Nobody has the foggiest idea. There's no way to answer that question.
What isn't there?
Was there a lot of them?
I have no idea.
Yeah, what was
Was
it?
It was somewhere between 1 and 10,000 million. I have no idea. It's impossible for me to know. How can I possibly know how many
There
people?
was
will
the
come
day
on
when
today?
everyone had to bring the sacrifice, and then that.
Erev
Yeah,
Pesach.
that's Erev
Once a
Pesach.
year, Erev Pesach.
But that would have been how many?
Yeah, but then the Kohanim weren't eating from them. The Kohanim weren't entitled to eat any of it. No, the owners ate the whole thing.
How much meat was the Kohanim eating already?
Yeah, the Gemara says they had a special doctor in the Beis Hamikdash.
A doctor?
A special doctor to treat the Kohanim. Because they ate so much meat and walked around with bare feet the whole time.
Is that true?
Yeah, the Gemara says.
Oh, so
That means-
they did eat so much meat, so that means that there is.
No, I didn't say.
There's there's no.
No. They ate a lot of meat. What's called a lot? How small is a China? I don't know. How long is a piece
A lot,
of string?
obviously, they
A
didn't
lot means
doctor.
more than is healthy. A lot is more than is healthy. No, but that doesn't tell me how many. Doesn't tell me how many Kohanim there were, how many people there were, how many sacrifices, how many. There's too many variables here for me to know anything. So I'm sorry, I can't help you. Okay, that's the fact. That what did they do? It looks like the way to read the Apostle, because since they wanted to roast it and they didn't want it cooked, that's what litzalot. Litzalot is tzli. I suppose sometimes they wanted the stew that we talked about before, with the nice potatoes and carrots and all the things, but sometimes they wanted it roasted, so, I'm taking it now. Wait, now, you're not entitled to it yet. Why are you taking it? And, right? So, v'lo yikach. So he would come and say, give me the priest, litzlot, to roast la kohen. V'lo yikach mimcha basar mevushal. He will not take from you cooked meat. He doesn't want cooked meat. He wants raw meat so he can roast it. Ki im chai. Ki means but, im means but, chai. So we usually mean chai means alive, but here it means raw.
Well,
Yeah? That means chai means raw as opposed to mevushal. Yes, it's from the same, right. It means it's not actually alive, it's dead, right? But the point is it's raw as opposed to cooked. Okay. Now, Aish, what would the man answer to the kohen? Kater yaktirun kayom hachelev. Let's first sacrifice the fats. Kater yaktirun, same word, to offer up. Kayom, like the day. Let's come back to that in a second. Hachelev, the fats. But kach, and then you'll take kasher te'aven nafshecha, like whatever you want. I mean, I've come to terms with the fact you're going to take whatever you want, although you're not actually entitled to take whatever you want, right? But let's say, but first of all, wait till the fats have been offered up, which is the halacha. You have to wait. You're not entitled to take them beforehand. Now, this expression, like the day, is an expression you have all over Tanach. What it usually means is when something is clear as daylight. Just like day is when it's clear, night is when it's dark. When you want to wait, when something's clearly being done, right? You use the word kayom. Like the day means like as day is clear as day is clear. So when it's not so clear if there's fats being brought up. Sometimes you say the fats have been brought. If these fats are my fats, they're your fats. I don't know. It's a big temple, and we don't know. When it's clearly being sacrificed, then we'll give you the pieces. Until then, no. The Amar, and he would say, that means the lad of the kohen who was doing all this, he would answer, Loi. Loi means? No. Now you notice it's got these brackets.
Oh.
That means Loi with a vav and Loi with an aleph really mean the opposites. Because Loi with the vav means to him. Loi with an aleph means no. So now, the reason why it's got these brackets is because in the Tanach it's written with a vav. It means if you buy a Tanach, unscroll, it will not have Loi with an aleph, it will have Loi with a vav. But it's clear from the context that it doesn't mean that. It can't say Va'amar. Well, I suppose it's not 100% clear. You could stretch it, the meaning, right? Sorry. Yeah. It means Va'amar Loi means he would say to him, but then what would he say to him? There's no word Loi there if you read the Loi with a vav. What it should say is, oh man, he said Loi, no, I don't agree to let you take. I'm not going to wait. Here we're talking about the Kohen's reply, right? I'm not going to wait, I'm going to take it now. So it seems clear what the sentence is trying to say, but for some reason, which I don't really know, right? It doesn't actually say that in the Tanach. In the Tanach it says it with a vav. So this is called a kri ksiv, which means it's written in one way, but the tradition is to read it another way. Now here, it doesn't make any difference. You read it Loi either way. It's not pronounced different. Often it'll actually be pronounced differently. It'll say V'amar, but it should be read V'amru. Right? It'll say almost every page. Here we've got this page has got another two of these. I didn't point out over there. Look on page 6. Pasuk Yud. Hashem Yeichatu Meri. Which is it? Merivo or Merivav? Now that's not the same word. Doesn't mean the same thing even. Merivo means his enemy. Merivav means his enemies. Different words, right? One's got a yud, one doesn't have a yud. So it's the same thing in the Tanach. It has it without the second yud, but it's traditionally read merivav. The next word says alad ayin lamed vav. Ayin lamed is Allah, alu, but we don't read it like that. We read it Allah. Almost every page in Tanach has one of these things called a kri ksiv. Much more in the Navi, much less in the Chumash. Almost every page has one of these things. And why it's like that, no one really knows. Right? There's all sorts of suggestions why it's like that.
Even
right?
in the Chumash.
Even in the Chumash you have it. Almost every chapter has one of these things, which means it's written one way. Now, the way you know is usually it'll be without the vowels. The one without the vowels is the one that you don't read. That's why they didn't put the vowels on the merivo, because you don't read it like that. You read the one with the vowels. But the one without the vowels is the way it's written in the Tanach, and it's called the kri ksiv, which means it's written one way, it's read another way. Some like to suggest that there were two different manuscripts. That means the editors of the Tanach had two manuscripts, and they wanted to pay their respects to both. And they wrote one in the text, and they wrote one in the thing. It's very, very unlikely that's the truth. One of the arguments is because even the Book of Ezra, which was the book edited by the editor of the Tanach, also has lots of these things in. So you'd think the editor would know which is the right version when he's writing by himself. It's one thing to have an ancient manuscript of Shmuel. You don't want to mess around with it. So you write two forms, one this way and one that way, and you will read it one way and write it the other way. But it's hard to believe that Ezra didn't know how to write the Book of Ezra, because it's all about him. So why isn't it? So that's a bit problematic. Also, some of them are very clear, without any doubt, what it should say. Right? These are not so obvious. Right? Merivov, his enemies. Merivov, okay, I don't know what she's praying for in the singular. Probably the next word. Alu, what does Alu mean? Alu wouldn't mean anything. It must mean Allah. For some reason, there's a yud missing. So the Radak, that's like 800-year-old commentary called Rabbi David Kimchi. He claims that every time it's meant to be a double meaning. It means the author wanted to give two messages, and the way to do that is to read it one way and to write it the other way. Now, you can't always work out what this double message is, right? For example, here, can I work it out? Well, the Amalai, he said to him, what did he say to him? Law. So maybe the author wanted you to read the two laws. He didn't write them both, but by writing one and reading the other, you've got that. Sometimes you can work it out, and the Radak does that. Often will tell you what's the double message. But it's important to notice that it's not just the printing mistake over here. It's because it's written with a vav, and it's understood to mean with an aleph. Here it doesn't make a difference. Either way, it's read the same. Okay? So the lad of the Kohen answered, Lo, no, ki ata tite. Ata means with an ayin.
You.
That's with an aleph.
Wait. No.
With an ayin. Ata with an ayin. Come on, got it right.
Now,
very good. Ki ata. Now, I'm not waiting till this thing is till I'm not waiting till it's cooked. I want it now. Now you give me. V'imlai, if you don't give it to me, v'lakachti b'chazka, I will take it b'chazka.
Strength.
With my strength. I don't care about you. I'll come and take it. So there was one of the two things. Either they were taking the piece that they weren't entitled to, or they were taking it before they were entitled to it. Even if they were taking the right piece. If you don't give it to me now, they're not going to take it by force. V'tehi chatas hana'arim gedayla, the sin, chatas, thank you very much.
I see someone got you.
Right? The sin of the lads. Now the lads here means both the lads of the Kohanim or Chofnim Pinchas who had sent them to do this, right? So the lads, their sin, gedayla ma'od, was a great sin, es pnei Hashem, meaning in the eyes of God or the face of God. God considered this a terrible aveira. Even though technically, if you want to, cut it down, what exactly was it? It wasn't Chilul Shabbos, it wasn't adultery, it wasn't Avodah Zarah. It was theft. I'm not diminishing theft, but it's not like a big term on Aveira. They were stealing. They weren't entitled to it at all, or they weren't entitled to it yet. But God considers it a big Aveira, right?
Because they're Kohanim, they should know better, and it's a bad
Right.
example.
They're Kohanim, they should know better.
It's a bad
They're
example.
leaders of the Jewish people, and they're in positions of power.
Kind of, they should know better. This is unacceptable. They're obviously not kind of if they're doing this. I'm saying
No,
obviously
they are Kohanim, technically they're Kohanim.
They are,
right?
but like it's not a normal thing. You're supposed. It's just like a holy thing, and then it's being twisted into like this.
Correct. Okay.
Greedy,
Correct. So
horrible.
that's why I say technically, in a technical sense, it's an affair of theft. But the way it's perceived, right? This is meant to be, like you say, this is meant to be a holy thing. You're giving this in order that the people should come closer to God, and they're misusing their position of power for their own personal gain and giving a whole bad name to the temple service, to priests, to leadership, to rabbis, to people who tremendous Chilul Hashem. That means Chilul Hashem isn't necessarily the guy's doing something so bad. It's just his misuse of his position. It gives a bad name from people or to rabbis.
It can really push people like away from
Correct.
Hashem and everything.
So that's why God's really, really annoyed with them. Ki niatzu ha'anoshim, the men. Well, a minute you call them Anoshim and Na'arim, well, probably because the Anoshim, the men, means Chofni and Pinchas, and the Na'arim are the ones who are doing the job on behalf of Chofni and Pinchas. That means the men are important. Important in the story was the high priest's sons, and their kids or their helpers were all involved because they had Niatsu, and it means to shame, disgrace. I think was a better word. They're disgraced Minchas Hashem, the offerings of God. Whereas the offerings were meant to be something that would bring them and the people closer to God, they had made it into something which was just a stake, and that's lost its whole significant meaning. And together with lots of other things, I think we can put throw a lot of things at them for what they do, even though technically it wasn't such a big avera. But God doesn't go for technicalities. The courts go for technicalities. God looks at all the consequences, right? Right, good. How much impact it's got on other people,
Very
negative
simply
impact, and that's why God's really annoyed with them.
You can very simply say there's situations where Rebbeim use their positions of power for bad things, and it sent hundreds of people off the
Right,
road.
correct.
So this can do the
Right.
same.
This is even more nuanced. The normal story you're talking about a rabbi who was a scandal with a rabbi that he committed adultery with somebody. Okay, that's a real scandal. But this rabbi is using his position of power for monetary gain, even though he's not really theft. He's either entitled to a piece of meat, just got a bit early, or either it's much more nuanced. But yes, they're using their
But let's
position.
just say
for-
a rabbi that used his position of power teaching kids to molest the kids.
Yeah, but that I said that's more serious, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is like, he used his
Oh.
position to funnel some of the yeshiva
I'm-
funds into his own personal account, right?
But I'm talking about the impact.
Yeah, the idea is the same idea. Right. Good. Okay, so we'll have to see how God reacts to this Avera. But we've got to see the whole thing before we talk about in depth what's going on with these great people, why they're doing these terrible things.